So I'm Charlie. I'll be running the session today. I've been working in marketing for sort of over 4 years now, with particular focus on SEO. So sort of specialised across sort of a couple of different sectors, but have sort of quite a broad range of experience. But sort of big focuses on the care sector, travel, charities. Worked with a lot of legal sector stuff as well. I've been with the Wagada team for just over a year now. Um, I think Dee can attest, it feels like it's been a lot longer, hopefully in a good way. Um, and so doing lots of things like keyword research, technical audits, content strategy, and just really focusing on sort of each individual client and how we can drive their sort of individual internal goals, and help them achieve their sort of marketing goals for the year. Um, so as I said before, the sort of talk is kind of aimed at sort of people with sort of no to beginner level SEO. So there's nothing sort of too technical in here. We really want you to be able to go away from this talk and sort of start actioning things yourself, and you can take it away to your team, and you can sort of help them action things as well. Um, so we'll jump straight into it. We'll look at some sort of current visibility and traffic challenges that people might be facing. Um, so obviously, a very sort of core one to SEO is algorithm changes in search engines. So big search engines like Google, like Bing, will have algorithms that they use to sort of review your content and rank your content on the website. Um, it would be nice and easy if they gave us a sort of set of rules and stuck to it. But all of these engines will change sort of several times a year. They'll update how they do it, and they'll tweak sort of the best practices and what they like to see. A lot of this is sort of in response to sort of changes in technology, changes in content. Obviously, with a lot of AI coming out, there's a lot of discussion about, is AI content good? Does it get penalized in search? Um, and a lot of the updates that we're seeing are very much focused on sort of user experience. And AI is okay to use as long as you are delivering high quality content that's relevant, and that brings value to clients. Now, algorithm changes can happen sort of in sort of spaced out gaps, sort of every kind of 6 months, or they can happen in sort of quick succession. So at the end of Q4 in 2024, we saw two back-to-back core updates, which are quite big changes, within about a week of each other. So sort of end of November, beginning of December. And we sort of saw across multiple industries, multiple sectors, this caused quite a lot of search volatility in terms of traffic. Um, where Google was going through and sort of cleaning up content. The impact it can have is that your site visibility and traffic can fluctuate quite heavily, even though your content is remaining consistent, and you can be delivering high quality content. Google can sort of change and experiment with the rules they use for ranking, which can see sort of quite big dips, quite big troughs in your traffic. So constantly having to change and adapt SEO strategies is quite a common issue that we see a lot of people facing. Um, Another sort of quite recent problem is the rise of sort of zero-click searches and AI in search. So zero-click searches are where users can search up a term in a search engine, they land on the results page, and actually all of the information's there. They don't have to click through to a website. So whether that's Google AI overviews, or whether that's features like people also asked, or sort of feature panels at the top of search, users are more easily able to access your content without having to go onto your site and engage further, which can cause sort of big issues with um, sort of reduced traffic. And when you get lower traffic, you then have sort of issues with inquiries and sort of sales, and it can impact a lot of key conversions on your site because that information is readily available in search results. On top of this as well, changing search behaviors. So previously, people would sort of all come to a search engine, look on it, click onto your site, and then go through the user journey from there. Whereas now, the way people that are searching, whether that's voice search or sort of Google Lens, where you can take a photo of something and get search results for it. Using TikTok as a search engine, that's a big trend that we're seeing at the moment, or AI-driven search tools like ChatGPT. The way people are looking for your content is changing significantly, which means we need to sort of adapt how we're delivering our content, how we're optimizing it to make sure that we're meeting people with those needs. And then obviously with things like ChatGPT, content saturation is a big issue that we're facing. So now that people are able to sort of mass produce content at a really rapid pace, search is getting flooded with content about topics. So whether you're sort of looking at dementia care or looking at sort of camera sales, people can flood out sort of blogs. They can create loads of product pages at sort of the drop of a hat, click of a finger. And it's creating an issue because Google has all of this content to go through that's sort of generic or it's very similar because it's being scraped from all over the place. And it makes it really hard to stand out as a website when you're sort of trying to work really hard to get high quality content that meets user needs, and you've got other competitors who are sort of pumping out pages and pages and pages of data in one go. So what we want to do is sort of take a look at some actionable tips and best practices so that your websites are sound, but also to give you that edge to sort of break through the noise and to stay ahead of the curve and stay competitive. So one of the first things that we're going to look at is effective keyword research. Um, so in terms of sort of looking at the content on your site, we want to take a look at sort of there's a trade-off between short tail and long tail keywords. So short tail are more of your sort of core content pillars. They're your umbrella terms. So if you're sort of a care home company, it'll be looking at the various different care services, sort of home care, living care, residential care. And these short tail terms are sort of their higher traffic volume because they capture a lot of sort of broad intent. But they can bring in slightly less qualified traffic because people are very much at the top of the funnel. They're very much in a sort of research stage, and very sort of early on in their decision-making processes usually. Whereas when you compare this to long tail keywords, this could be sort of 3 words or more. It can be sort of questions, FAQs. These might be lower search volume, but what we tend to find is that people are further along the conversion journey. They're looking for sort of more detailed information. They're sort of ready to take some actions. And we find that these longer tail keywords are fantastic to sort of supporting your long-term goals and your overall targeting, as they often bring in sort of more qualified leads and better conversion rates because people are further along in their journey of search. Um, so there's a couple of things you consider when you're sort of looking at keywords like this. One of the first factors that we look at is search volume. So you can use various tools. There's lots of free ones out there. We've got sort of a couple to share with you in a couple of slides. So if you're looking at keywords, we kind of suggest looking at things that have several sort of searches a month, whether that's sort of between sort of 50 to 100 is quite a good place to start. If you're looking at more broad keywords, if you're looking at more niche, longer tail keywords, things that have sort of 10 or 20 searches a month can be really good because of those higher conversion rates. So actually, if you're getting sort of 10 or 20 searches a month, but sort of 5 to 6 of them are converting, that's pretty good sort of return on investment there. We also look at something we call keyword difficulty, which is how competitive a keyword is. So if you're sort of a shoe company and you're trying to sell shoes, the word shoes will have a huge amount of search volume. But in terms of converting those into clients, into customers, it's not going to be quite as easy. And obviously, every other shoe company in the world will also be competing on that keyword. Whereas if you're looking at something much more niche, um, something like the latest sort of running trainers, um, sort of in London for sale. It will be much sort of smaller keyword difficulty because there's less people in that pool competing for that keyword. And then we also want to think about user intent. So what are people looking for when they're actually looking at this keyword? Are they wanting information or are they wanting sort of a sale? Are they wanting to be able to purchase a product at the end of that? So touching a bit more on that user intent, there's several different types. So obviously there's the more informational side of it, people looking for information, looking for answers, looking for knowledge. And these type of keywords build brand awareness and trust. So you might not get a conversion, you might not get a sale, you might not get an inquiry out of it, but people are going to start knowing your brand name. They're going to see more of you at the top of search engines. You've then got some navigational keywords, which is where they are specifically looking for your brand. So that might be sort of as a care home, that might be as like a digital marketing agency. And what we tend to find is that it captures sort of that existing interest. And so you can really help people engage further with your site and sort of highlight key pages for them in search results. And then we've got sort of more commercial keywords. So these are keywords where people are starting to research before their action. It's that pre sort of transactional stage where it's influencing their decision making. And then we've got that transactional type of intent where people want to do something right now. They want to buy, they want to download, they want to find this service, and they're looking for it right now. But on top of this, we've also got location keywords. So that's geographic. So that's sort of window cleaning in London, or beauty services in Birmingham or in St Albans, and you can get quite niche with those locations as well. So location keywords are fantastic. They You tend to get increased conversions purely due to proximity. So if you've got somebody in Scotland searching for window cleaning, they're not going to be looking for services that are only provided down in London. So if you can target them and meet them where they are, they're much more likely to convert purely due to the proximity. It also boosts local rankings. So whilst you might sort of be position sort of 10 or 11 across the UK, actually, if you then look at a service specifically in London, because you offer it there and you've got content on your site that is showing that your service is there, that will increase your ranking. So you might be sort of 10 or 11 UK wide, but actually you're sort of number two, number one in London for that product or that service, which is fantastic. It can then increase visibility in specific regions. So if you're looking to expand your services or you do offer services UK wide, you can create content on your site that drills down into that. And it makes it easier to get services coming through or to get inquiries coming through from those areas. And again, they tend to be more qualified leads because they are nearby, they're in the proximity, so they're more likely to convert there. So one of the first tips that we have is targeting long tail and location-based keywords in general. So a lot of what we suggest for sites is if they've got physical locations or they've got sort of target markets that they want to penetrate, is having sort of long tail sort of question and answer sections and also location pages on the site too. So it's creating content that is specifically targeting relevant queries and it's matching the user intent. So in terms of what that looks like, if you take the keyword dementia care home, the search results are heavily dominated by high authority websites that are quite hard to compete with. So you're looking at sort of the NHS, they're a very big source of truth. Google and search engines take quite a lot of value from that. They place quite high authority on it. And so they're very much at the top and they dominate those sort of positions 1, 2, 3. Whereas when you take sort of longer tail keywords, you add the locations in. So dementia care homes in Cheltenham and Stroud, our clients ranking in position 2. So that's above the NHS page, which sort of demonstrates that power of location-based targeting and longer tail keywords as well. And this applies across sort of all sectors. So if you're sort of looking at e-commerce and you're targeting sort of used cameras, actually having pages that are sort of refurbished Sony cameras in Birmingham, you've got a much better chance of ranking higher in search results for that, giving sort of that extra level of detail and the location-based targeting compared to sort of the just general used cameras. So in terms of doing that keyword research, there's several tools out there that are free to use that are really good. So Moz Keyword Explorer, Ahrefs Keyword Generator, and Mangles. We'll sort of send links around and stuff at the end as well. These are quite good tools, but they do have some limitations. So they'll have search limits and slightly reduced data compared to the paid versions of them. But they're a really good place to start if you're just wanting to find your feet with the keyword research and have a general overview. And it's really good if you're looking at perhaps which services or products that you want to push, because it gives you an idea of actually where the search demand is as well. So you don't just have to rely on sort of sales data and things. So something else on top of that is meta titles and descriptions. So you might not be familiar with the term, but everybody sees sort of metadata, meta titles, descriptions every day. It's the sort of blue title and the brief description that we see on results pages. So it's massively, massively important. It marks up the content of your page to Google. So a lot of what we do in SEO is creating content that obviously is very people friendly, it's very human focused. That's our first port of call. But also we need to speak in the language of search engines so that they can sort of register the content and understand what the site is about as well, because it's very different language to people. But these are fantastic and it's a really underutilized area of opportunity. because it's the first thing that people see about your site when they're looking in search. Is that title, is that meta description? And it has a huge impact on rankings and click-through rates as well on your site. So in terms of best practices, meta titles, every single page should have a meta title. It should be unique to that page. So as we don't want sort of pages competing, we want to make it really clear to users and to search engines. Sort of pages are different, have different content. Between 30 to 60 characters. We kind of say that because if you're under 30 characters, you've got a lot more space. You're not utilizing all of your opportunities to optimize. And if you're going over 60 characters, Google might sort of cut the title off, so users might not be able to see everything. Within that, obviously, there is a little bit of wiggle room. I always sort of say SEO is an art rather than a science. So if you're sort of 1 or 2 characters over, it's not the end of the world. And again, it's to do with the added value that that's going to have in terms of that page content. Include the page target keyword. So if you've got a blog, what we do want to create engaging titles, but we definitely want the keyword that we're targeting in that title as well, because that will help with rankings. So something that we commonly see, especially with blogs and other resources, are very creative titles, very creative names, which is great, but it doesn't actually give search engines and users a good understanding of what the content on the page is about necessarily. So in terms of the structure, a good format is kind of keyword and then sort of the brand name afterwards. This will help with targeting and ranking for those keywords, and it will also help with brand visibility as well. So ideally, we want to get both of those in. And in terms of the brand name, it's not the end of the world if it goes over sort of character limits, because the sort of main bulk of what we want users to see is what that content is about. And then in terms of meta descriptions, again, a unique meta description for every page. Something that we see quite a lot is that meta descriptions either haven't been changed or updated, they've been duplicated from each page, or they're sort of the same across a series of contents or blogs, or they're general and they sort of target everything. We want to make them really unique to each page, again, to help with those rankings, to help with that targeting. They should be between about 150 to 160 characters. This gives us plenty of opportunity to target the keywords that we're looking for. And also it gives us space to help draw users in, to help engage with them, connect with them, so that they want to come onto the site. It should also include the page target keyword. Something I'd say with this is it can be sort of verbatim, it can be the exact keyword phrasing, or you can use some more natural language. You can use some variations because search engines are very good at understanding those semantics. So if you've got, again, dementia care, using phrases like looking for care services for dementia, it just helps with that targeting in a more natural way rather than sort of what we call keyword stuffing, which is sort of a very black hat tactic where you sort of put the keyword at every given opportunity, every other word. It's not good for user experience. And also search engines will pick up on that. They will pick up if you're trying to sort of manipulate the results in that way. So we want to make sort of all of these natural, sort of human. And then including call to actions as well. So if there's an action you want users to take, whether it's sort of explore the content more or whether it's sort of call us today, book an inquiry, book a demo, we can add those in the meta descriptions to kind of, again, encourage that user interaction, that motivation. And something we can do with these two is make use of locations. So one of our sort of recent case studies is we had a client who has service in sort of London and St Albans, and they didn't have locations in titles or metadatas. So by simply adding that information in, we saw significant increases in local rankings overnight. So you can see sort of on this graph where we implemented, and it's almost sort of it's doubled. It's brought those pages up by about 2 pages in search results. So it's really quite a powerful tactic, and it's something that's often underutilized. So this can work if you have physical locations. So if you've got a physical building, a physical shop, or it can work if you've got different target markets across the UK. So different service areas that you're targeting. And we can help sort of boost it across there. So if we sort of move one step further on from metadata, and then get into the content that's on the site, something that we think's really great to use is header tags. Um, a lot sometimes it's used interchangeably with subheadings, but header tags are something in their own right. To get sort of the full SEO benefit, it's a little bit of code that tells sort of web browsers and search engines how content should be displayed. Um, so uh, oh, sorry, 2 seconds. They help users and search engines understand the key topics on the page and its importance. And it improves user experience and page rankings by making content easy to read and easier to crawl. Um, so in terms of what that looks like, you can see here we've got these various different subheadings on the page. And then when you look on the right-hand side here, you can see that it's marked up with different types of header tags. So you've got sort of H1s, which is the very top one. That's the most important header tag on the page. That's what you're wanting search engines and users to sort of see as the main topic. What is this page about? And then underneath that, you have H2s and you have H3s. So there's a very hierarchical structure. So what you want is sort of H1 at the top, and then anything sitting underneath that you want as a H2. And then underneath H2s, you have H3s. So in terms of best practices, as you said, H1 only one H1 per page. So what we commonly see is that people perhaps use H tags as style choices sometimes. So you can have sort of web developers create sort of different colors, different sizes. And something that people often do is use that to make the page look really nice. But actually, they have more power than just styling on the page. Also, there is we want to use a logical hierarchy. So we don't want to have sort of a H4 at the top of the page and then a H1 in the middle and sort of H2 scattered throughout. We very much want to follow that H1, H2s, H3s. We normally it's best to only have one H1 on a page. You can have multiple H2s, you can have multiple H3s, but we like to fit them in that nice hierarchical structure. So you can go from a H2 with some H3 sections underneath. You can then move back to a H2 and sort of have other H3s, and then sort of H4s below H3s, but just one H1 per page. Ideally, it's best to be quite concise and clear. So we don't want H1s that are sort of super, super long, take up loads of the page. The same way that we don't want H2s that are stylized choices. That's something we see quite frequently these days, is people use it to sort of bold a whole section of text. And actually, that's not that helpful for search engines. It doesn't help to sort of boost that content up. We want to sort of make sure that we're using them to help search engines, to help users, rather than just for style. So that's something that we can sort of help, we can talk with web developers about. And if that is the case, we can perhaps look at developing those and going, actually, we want that H1 to be nice and big at the top. Or if you do want those H2s to be bigger, you can talk to your web developers about that and sort of get those designed to sort of fit the needs that you're looking for, rather than using those H tags as a styling point. So again, a tip here is using headers to target long tail keywords. So the really good sort of example of this is these longer tail keywords. So for this one, for example, is when should someone with dementia go into a care home? It's got very, very high search volume, which isn't necessarily sort of capitalized on if you're just looking at sort of dementia care. And what you can do with that is then create sort of FAQ sections at the bottom of your pages. So it captures traffic from users with sort of more purposeful search intent. It can help you improve content relevance. It can help you demonstrate your authority, and it can increase your visibility for niche queries that have lower competition. So whilst sort of dementia care might be a really competitive keyword, actually the keyword difficulty for when should someone with dementia go into a care home is quite low. So we've got a much better chance of ranking sort of for page 1 and above for that. So what else can we sort of do with the content on the page itself? Something that we quite commonly see these days is sort of duplicate content across the site. So whether that's because you're targeting sort of multiple locations and have quite similar content across each of the pages, or you've got standardized content blocks that sort of, whether that's a deal that you've got or a product or sort of benefits for various services. So there are different types of duplicate content. You get sort of identical or near identical copy, as we're sort of saying, those standardized sections. similar topics or keywords. So this might be that you've got 5 or 6 blogs that are all targeting the same keywords, just with slight variations of it, and the content's fairly similar. Repeated meta titles and descriptions. So what we do see quite a lot of is the same title and part 1, part 2, part 3. That makes it quite hard for users and Google to understand the difference and what the content on the page is. URL variations, which show the same content. So frequently, if the technical SEO on a site's not quite correct, you can get sort of www versions of a URL, and then you can get non-www versions, which means you've got 2 pages that are absolutely identical that are both visible to users on the site. We also see this where you have a trailing slash at the end of a URL and a non-trailing slash too. So this again can cause issues with duplicated content, because whilst we're not intentionally trying to do that, Google and users can both see that. So it's sort of showing to search engines that you've got the same things across your site. There's then sort of issues with syndicated and scraped content. So syndicated content does have a lot of value. It's great, sort of having your content legitimately republished on third-party sites. But it can sometimes cause issues with competing URLs, because if you're using that same content in multiple places across the web, Google goes sort of looks at that and goes, well, which one should I rank higher? It's the same content, which one's the original? And the same with users as well. They can look at that and go, I've seen that somewhere else, which one's the original? So it can cause issues with competing URLs. And then scraped content can cause quite a lot of trouble. So this is when you've got unauthorized sort of copies of your content across the web, whether that's a competitor that's stolen some of your content, or whether it's just a spammy site that's sort of copied and pasted and is using your content to try and rank in search results. This can have quite a negative impact. So it can push your content lower down because URLs are competing again. It can reduce your traffic, and also it can sort of do some brand damage as well, because people don't necessarily trust that content if they've seen it on a spammy site, or if they're seeing it being used across sort of multiple websites, multiple brands. It just sort of reduces user trust and things. So in terms of best practices to avoid that duplicate content, we use canonical tags on all pages. So this is a bit of code that you put in the back end, and it points search engines to the main version of a page, and it goes, this is the original, this is the main version, this is the one that we want to rank in search results. So it's kind of sort of pointing authority back to the original source. Then creating unique metadata for each page as well. So if there are pages that perhaps have similar sections of content on them, having unique titles, unique metadata helps users and search engines sort of differentiate between those 2 pages. It shows that they have different purpose. It shows that they meet different user needs. And again, it helps with differentiating the 2 of them. We do try to say avoid publishing the same information in multiple places across your site. Obviously, there's definitely a place for standardized content, especially if you've sort of got web, it can help with creating new pages and things like that. But what we like to say is sort of creating unique copies. So sort of whether that's rewording, whether that's adding sort of more tailored content there, trying to make it unique across each page, again, just to give these indications that it's independent content, it's meeting different user needs, it's targeting different keywords. And visually sort of making it different for users as well. So if you've perhaps got loads of location pages or loads of product pages for sort of very similar products, it just helps sort of mark to users and search engines that it is different. And then if you do have old versions of content, we recommend adding redirects so that you don't have old pages sort of in the background that are still ranking, still trying to gain traffic, when you've got a new page that actually is the one you want people to see, you want it to rank highest in search results. So we'll touch a little bit more on redirects later as well. So something that we would suggest to kind of give you a bit of an edge here is doing a consolidating and streamlining sort of similar content exercise. So we kind of call it a bit of a content audit. So what we'd suggest is looking at your whole site or a section of your site, like the blog or something like that, or perhaps products. If you're sort of a travel company and you've got loads and loads and loads of destinations, take a look at those URLs, put them into a spreadsheet. You can then use sort of tools like GA4 to take a look at traffic and page views. and then benchmark that for 12 months. And you can take a review and you can go, actually, these pages here that we've got on the site haven't got any traffic for the past 12 months, or there's minimal page views here. But this main, if we take travel, for example, this main destination page is getting sort of all of the traffic that we want. You can actually sort of streamline and remove some of that content and make your site leaner, and make sort of the focus on those priority products, those priority services. Um, so search engines have something that we call a crawl budget. So that means sort of it's the amount of pages that they can go through on your site and sort of index and mark in one go. So if you've got loads and loads and loads of pages on your site, Google's trying to go through all of those and sort of rank them. Whereas if you go through and do the streamlining exercise, it just highlights those priority pages, and really sort of puts the core focus on those. Obviously, you don't need to go through and sort of cut everything off of your site. That's not what we're suggesting. But it's just making your site leaner, slicker, cleaner for users and search engines. It reduces competition in SERPs, it reduces cannibalization of content. So something that we frequently see is sort of there's a lot of blog content around one particular topic. Um, it's great to do content clusters like that, but if they're all targeting the same keyword, sort of none of them are going to rank that well. Whereas if you can consolidate those into sort of one really powerful authoritative blog, that's going to rank much higher and bring much more value to you in the long run. And it also enhances user experience as well because it's easier to navigate your site and find the content that they're wanting. Something else that we sort of really suggest, it's not necessarily directly on your website, but Google business profiles. So these can have a massive impact on search rankings and especially local search. Um, so sort of they tend to be on the right-hand side of search results. This is a tool that you have complete control over, so you can claim your profile, and it helps customers find key information about you and connect with you. They're really important because they increase your visibility in local search results. You get a lot of sort of conversions coming from them. So whether that's a website visit, whether that's a direct call, whether it's people looking for directions to your physical location, looking at sort of opening times or looking at what services that you have available. They offer a lot of really key information for customers right then and there when they need it. And it can increase both your website traffic and also physical footfall if you've got sort of a brick shop as well. Um, so in terms of sort of the impact that they have, website visits from Google business profiles are definitely on the rise. So this sort of data that we've got here is average monthly website visits by industry, from a 2024 survey. So as you can see, sort of for recreation, automotive, hospitality, there's a lot of power in these profiles and the traffic that it's driving to your site. So it's definitely something we'd suggest utilizing across sort of any sector that you're in. So around 24% of businesses with Google profiles get sort of more than 50 calls per month. And obviously, when you can get in front of people like that, you can get connected to them like that. The conversion rate of that traffic is then a lot more powerful. And again, there's a lot of areas for opportunity. So Google business profiles are always developing. They've got a feature now which is sort of posts, so you can share updates about your company. You can send news about your company and content directly on Google business profiles. But data at the moment is showing that sort of 40% of businesses have never posted at all on their profiles. So there's a huge area of opportunity there, which you can sort of reuse and adapt content that you already have on your site, to put on that Google business profile and then capture more of that traffic, more of that engagement, and sort of have more of a competitive edge there. So in terms of sort of best practices, you want to keep your name, address, your phone number consistent. So whatever you've got on your website as your sort of address, phone number, contact details, you want that to match exactly word for word what you've got on your Google business profile. If you've got sort of multiple locations, multiple service areas, you can also have multiple profiles. So if you've got offices in sort of London, in Edinburgh, and Birmingham, you can have different business profiles for those locations, highlighting the different addresses, if there's different opening times, if they offer slightly different services or slightly different products. And again, it helps with those local search results. You can add images of your sort of products, of your company, of physical buildings, of your team, and it kind of helps people sort of see what you're about. So I think one of the most common things that I do is if I'm going to a restaurant, I'll look at that Google business profile, take a look at things like the food, um, take a look at sort of the physical location, the building, what it looks like, how to get there. And it just makes that user engagement, that connection a lot easier. You can also select categories. So that's sort of what business areas, what services you're showcasing, what you're offering, and who you are. So Google knows sort of how to rank you and what content to sort of put you as part of. You can add your opening hours. You can also add sort of special opening hours. So if you've got different times over the holidays, if there's bank holidays, you can update your customers so they know. And it reduces sort of frustration points there as well. So it stops people sort of making a journey into town, and realizing that you're not open. Um, you can showcase who you are in the company description. So you can write some content about yourself, about who you are, get your core values in there. And again, that can give you a competitive edge over competitors. So if you've got another company that doesn't have that description, doesn't showcase their services, and you do, people are going to be more trusting of that. And again, it's another way that you can just edge in there and keep ahead of the curve. Um, Google reviews and sort of replying to those and responding to those are super valuable. It's a trust signal for users and for search engines. And people will go through your Google reviews because it's a really good place to get honest sort of content, honest feedback about what the company's like, about what your service is like, and also responding to those. So even if it's a 5-star review, respond to it, say thank yous, things like that. It shows user engagement. It shows that you care. And even if you get a bad review, actually, if customers can see, if clients can see that you can address that with sort of care, consideration, thoughtfulness in a timely manner as well, that you respond, you can even turn sort of perhaps less favorable reviews into a tool, to boost traffic, to boost trust with users. You can link to your social media platforms, so it gives people another way that they can sort of interact with you, view your content, view who you are, what you're about, what you're offering, and it's just a very good sort of general collection point, that users can get all of this useful information about you from. So what I would say about this is absolutely capitalize on reviews. So it's something that's often forgotten or perhaps not prioritized with a lot of companies because it is difficult to get users to engage and to leave a review. But it is hugely valuable. So online reviews at the moment sort of account for about 10% of how Google and other major search engines rank you in search results. And something that we're also seeing is that Google AI overviews are pulling a lot of informational and opinion-based content directly from Google reviews. So if people are looking for sort of positive feelings about a brand, like is this a good brand? Are they trustworthy? Google's quite a sort of self-contained being, so it will use its own products. Google definitely likes to use Google reviews to sort of pull into AI overviews and go, actually, this is what people are saying about this company. And so actually people's personal opinions can start to write the brand narrative of your brand. So having those sort of responses and things is really helpful. And again, trying to sort of encourage sort of positive reviews about your brand is really helpful. You can sort of copy review short links, which you can send out to clients directly. You can also, depending on sort of what services you're offering, think about reviews from employees. So if you're offering a care service, like a home care service, you can ask for reviews from those employees about sort of the recruitment process, about what it's like to work at the company that you're working at. And again, sort of look at 5 stars and things. I think with that, it's important to caveat that we don't want to sort of get loads of fake reviews or just encourage just 5 stars with sort of repeated comments. But we want to sort of capitalize on it. If we've got a happy client, if someone's really happy with the product, with the service, just a gentle sort of nudge to go, can you leave us a Google review? It will bring a lot of value to the company. And again, it's a lot of value to potential users, potential clients as well. Something else we suggest is internal linking, strong internal linking on your site. So there's different types of internal links. You use hyperlinks on sort of sections of text to navigate people through your site and to different resources. You've got structural links, which are kind of the foundation sort of navigation for a site. So that's your main menu up the top. It's your footer links at the bottom. And you've then got contextual links. So those are the links that we have that are embedded sort of in the content of a page, and might point to different pages on your website. So those are internal links, or they might point to sort of additional resources for people to read on other websites, like an NHS website or something. And all of them have sort of a lot of SEO value. So it improves site navigation. It distributes what we call sort of link equity. So internal links, if somebody lands on your page, there's a lot of power there. And if you internally link to another page, it helps to sort of boost that page in search results. It gives authority to that page. It's something you might have heard it before. It's called link juice. It's a rather shifty sounding name for something that's very powerful, very positive. And it improves the crawlability of your website as well. So search engines can sort of go through, and if you've got all of these sort of internal links, they can see sort of the structure of your site better. They can see which pages are important, and they get a much better understanding of that. So in terms of best practices, link to higher priority pages like your services, your products, relevant blogs. Make sure linked content is relevant and it adds value. So we don't just want to stuff links in for the sake of stuffing links in. We want to make sure that they really add value to the user. Link to key conversion points. So contact us, sort of inquiry form pages, and use descriptive anchor text rather than sort of things like click here now. Having sort of links added to contact us and find out more is really valuable. So capitalizing on this, we would suggest running internal linking audits, because something we quite often find is that people haven't linked to their product pages throughout the site. They haven't linked to their services throughout the site. And it's got a huge amount of power, it can have a huge amount of impact. So we did an internal linking audit recently, and when we went through and added links to these product pages, firstly, what we saw is within a month, page views went up significantly. So we saw an increase of 47% and 34% to these product pages on the site. And then more importantly, what we saw is an increase in key conversion events on those product pages. So there was a 46% increase on one and a 47% increase on the other. So by simply going through your site and adding those internal links, we've been able to drive more conversions, more traffic, more leads for that client, which is really important. And again, it's a relatively easy thing to do, because especially if you know your website, you know where you're talking about these products and where you can add these internal links in as well. And it's valuable across all industries, across all sectors, and it really increases user engagement on the site. SEO-friendly URLs as well. So URLs, sort of the bit that you see at the top of search when you're on a page, they help give context to users. So when you look at these three URLs, it's quite clear which one of them has the most context to the content. So you can see quite clearly on number 3, it's talking about jobs, it's talking about a marketing manager role, it's talking about London and more specifically Westminster. Whereas these other roles, search engines don't really know what the content on the page is about, and they're quite messy for users to try and understand. So creating these user-friendly URLs, we want to make sure they're sort of short and descriptive, concise and clear. Ideally, we want to add those target keywords in there as well, because that helps users and search engines understand what the content's about. Figure out sort of for users, it helps them to figure out whether it's relevant to them or not, and for search engine, it helps them understand your content so that they can serve it on the right search results. And then in terms of best practice, we want to use hyphens rather than underscores as well, just because Google and sort of other search engines don't necessarily register underscores as a space. So it'll look like one giant sort of word to Google, whereas if you use those hyphens, it registers that as a space and it understands that those are all separate words. So what we'd suggest here is that when you create a new page, you have an opportunity to create a customized URL for the page for that content. We'll sort of caveat this again with you can change URLs for current pages, but it will create a whole new page, as it were. So you'll have to redirect that old content to the new updated one. So in terms of customizing, we'd suggest just doing it for pages that you are creating brand new. But yeah, it helps everyone understand the content. It improves click-through rates and the accuracy of indexing. And it can also increase the shareability of your content as well. So as we're sort of coming towards the end, we're going to get a little bit more technical with some of the things. But again, there's room for sort of additional support there as and when you need it. So redirecting broken pages. Um, Everybody knows what a broken page is, 404 pages. It's quite frustrating when we come across it because it means either you can't find the content that you're looking for or it's sort of hard to navigate back to the main site. As you can see here, they don't have to be dull or boring. You can use it as another sort of opportunity to showcase your brand. Um, in terms of sort of what errors are, it's when pages on your site can't be found. Um, it might be because sort of the URL's been changed or a page has been deleted because you no longer want the content up there. It can cause bad sort of user experience, disrupt site navigation. So we can fix this by implementing redirects, which we mentioned earlier. So 301 redirects are a permanent redirect. So this is going that old content is gone. We don't want it ranking anymore. Here's the new page that we want you to rank. And if you're into more e-commerce, 302 redirects are temporary. So if you've got a product that is out of stock, but it's going to be back in stock another day, you can add a temporary redirect onto it that shows sort of Google and users that the content isn't available at the moment. And then you can again take that off when that product's back in stock. So redirects like this prevent traffic loss by guiding visitors and search engines to relevant sort of working content. And it just helps with that user experience on your site, which is a big sort of ranking factor for Google. So best practices, we want effective error pages with clear next steps for users. So sometimes people underutilize them and just have a big error message. You can use it as an opportunity to sort of link to key service pages, key product pages. Would suggest auditing links across the site. So you can use tools like Screaming Frog, or you can sort of, depending on how big the site is, manually check for those error pages. When you do identify them, adding those redirects in to sort of help streamline the site, help redirect users, and sort of keep the traffic on the site. Then sort of continuing to monitor sort of at a regular basis, sort of every couple of months, just to make sure that that site's clean. So it's a little bit more technical, but you can collaborate with web developers or sort of SEO teams and stuff to support as well, and get all of that implemented on your site and just sort of cleaning it up a bit from a more technical perspective. So again, diving a bit more deeper into that, sitemaps. So this is like a bank of all of the URLs, all of the core pages on your site. And it helps with how search engines rank content. So search engines will use spiders, or they're sort of otherwise known as search bots or crawlers. And they go through the structures of your site. So they crawl through all of your URLs to look at the content and then sort of rank it and index it where they see fit and to rank it for those keywords. So the spiders will crawl the site, following sort of internal links from one page to the other. And then once they've understood that content, they index it in search results so that it then serves for the right keywords. So an XML sitemap is quite literally as it sounds. It's a map for search engines to use that shows them sort of all of your priority pages, all of your key pages, and what you want them to serve in search results. So you can find it by sort of doing a / at the end of your domain name and then typing in sitemap.xml. There's several different types of format for it. But sort of the most common format is sitemap.xml. And you can take a look at sort of all the key pages on your site. So as you can see, this is R1. You've got sort of pages, you've got the team sitemap, case study, sort of careers, vacancies. And then you can click into each of those and you've sort of got a breakdown of all the pages on your site. So one of our biggest tips that can have quite big wins quite quickly is optimizing those sitemaps. So what you don't want to do is have old pages in there because it again wastes sort of search engines' time. It means they're crawling pages that don't exist anymore or that you don't want to rank anymore. And again, redirected URLs. So if you've got a new version of a page that you want to rank, making sure that that one is in the sitemap rather than the old version. making sure that all of your priority content is included. So if you don't have sort of your product pages included in the sitemap, that'll be having a big impact on rankings. So just doing a sort of check of that to make sure everything that you want to be served to users is in there. Um, Making sure it's included in the robots.txt file. So if a sitemap is sort of a page of all the content that you want to be ranked, a robots.txt file is a instruction sort of for search engines on how to read that content. So this is probably a bit more technical. You'll probably want some web dev support or SEO support with this one. But it's just, again, a piece of code to make sure that Google can find what it needs to find. And then submitting the map to Google Search Console. So if the map is all of the pages you want ranked, when you submit it to Google Search Console, it's handing it to the search engines to go, here's everything I want you to crawl onto the site. This is probably a bit more technical, probably need a little bit more technical support with it, but can have a huge impact on visibility and traffic coming through to the site. And then lastly, we've got page load speeds. So I think everybody sort of knows when you go onto a site and it's taking forever to load. Um, it can be quite, well, like this, it can be quite disruptive. You're sort of watching that sort of wheel of death just turning round and round. And users bounce quite quickly. It's very much a couple of seconds, and users will then sort of go. So if they can't access your content on your site, they will go somewhere else with it. So there's a couple of key things we want to consider here. So full load time. So how long does it take for all of the elements on the page to load? Ideally, we aim for 2 seconds or less. Otherwise, again, you risk users bouncing. LCP, which is largest contentful paint. This basically means how long it takes the largest visible element on your page to sort of load. So psychologically for users, when the largest element's loaded, it's kind of an indication that the page is pretty much fully loaded. It's almost there. It's kind of a confirmation that, yeah, all the content there's that I need. I can sort of get on with my journey. And then, so we want that sort of 1.2 seconds or lower. And then CLS, which is the cumulative layout shift. So basically, this is when you go onto a site and you're trying to sort of click on a button, and then suddenly the page jumps because things have now sort of loaded that previously weren't ready. In terms of best practices here, there's quite a lot that you can do. So compressing large images, oversized images on the site. This is particularly sort of useful for more sort of visual companies. So if you're perhaps displaying sort of art products, any products in general, or perhaps you're an architectural company that sort of wants to showcase your case studies or recent buildings, we want to make sure that visually these images work really well, but also we want to make sure that the file sizes are small enough that they can be served in time. So we kind of suggest about 100 kilobytes or less. Obviously, there is a trade-off with that about how high quality we need those images. We want to minimize redirects where possible. So we don't want to have a site that's full of redirects because Google has to go from sort of one link to the other and then to the next to sort of rank all of that content. So we want to minimize that where possible. Minifying sort of big files. So CSS, those are the cascading style sheets. That's basically the visual appearance of a page. So layout, colors, fonts. JavaScript sort of adds interactivity and dynamic elements to a page, so animations or interactive buttons. And then sort of basic HTML elements as well. So that's things like the text and the headings and the links. This is something you could definitely talk to web developers about, because obviously we need to know what each of those files is doing to make sure that we're not reducing sort of key components on the page. But it's something worth reviewing and taking a look at. And then eliminating render blocking resourcing. So sort of deferring when these files load. So these are things that can stop a page loading quickly. And again, this is something you can talk to web developers about. So something that you can do yourselves without that sort of level of expertise of implementing is reviewing the page load speeds. So this tool is called Page Speed Insights. You can search it up online. It's free. It's accessible to everybody. And you can add in URLs from your page that then you get a customized report on. And so this could be a home page, this could be product pages, service pages, would suggest sort of using media heavy pages. So if you've got pages with lots of videos or lots of images on it, you'll then get a customized report which gives you all of these details, and it highlights quite easily whether it's sort of you've got a good performance, whether there's room for improvement, or actually whether you've got some core issues with that page or that type of content. Um, it then comes up with sort of a healthy sort of report, a diagnosis of these issues, which you can share with your web developers and sort of have a collaborative approach and work on to sort of enhance those pages, improve that page load speed. Better page load speeds will definitely help with user retention. And again, that user experience, which is a big ranking factor for Google and other search engines, having a if you both rank the same, if you've got the same content as a competitor or similar levels, if you've got a faster site, a more user-friendly site, Google will rank you above that competitor because that's your sort of that's a USP. It's a core sort of win that you've got. It's another advantage that you've got. Um, but you don't need to be a specialist at everything. There are web developer teams, you've got SEO marketers out there, and you can sort of get support with implementing these things. So you're very much not alone in it. And you can take a sort of collaborative approach to get all of these implemented, and you don't sort of need to get them all implemented at once. These are just things that you can have a think about, that you can start sort of conversations about internally. And yeah, you could hopefully will be able to see some sort of quite positive results quite quickly by sort of taking think about these and implementing these things.